Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel in the first place. Today we have an Aizawa X listener. It's Your Pretty by Wolffang009 on AO3. The link will be in the description, go check them out, and let's go ahead and get into it. Insecure was an understatement. Self-loathing, maybe? Pro-hero Eraserhead, or Shota Aizawa, was a dull man to be looked upon. Or at least, that's what he thought of himself as. Mangled, unkempt hair, a scruffy, scarred face, dry, baggy eyes, all qualities that he couldn't stand about himself. Nonetheless, how he dresses or how he carries himself. He wasn't the man to dress up or make himself look nice, unless you count the times he allowed Eri to braid his hair or paint his nails. He never liked that sort of stuff. His hero costume is just an oversized jumpsuit with a long scarf draped over his shoulders. And when not working, he'd prefer a loose-fitting v-neck or just a plain hoodie over anything else. And that's what he liked. That's what made him the most comfortable. But he still hated himself. You, on the other hand, were drawn into his looks day one of working with him at UA. You liked him. You liked everything about this Shota Aizawa. Everything about him you found attractive. You liked his long hair. You liked his facial scars. You liked his eyes. You didn't care how he dressed or how he presented himself. You actually found his sense of style quite charming in a way, something of which he could never understand. You were the first one to admit that you liked him, and he was flabbergasted to say the least. Him? Why him? That couldn't be right. Nobody liked him in that way. You were the perfect one. You were the one who was attractive, beautiful in every which way and more. Not him. But yet, you persisted, telling him how much you liked him, and how you always liked him. You didn't care about his appearance, or what he looked like. You did find him attractive inside and out, and soon enough, Aizawa caved into it. That was a little over 2 years ago, and he still doesn't believe it. Not really anyways. Although he couldn't, he stopped asking why. He enjoyed his time with you so much that eventually, very reluctantly, he started to push his doubtful thoughts away, live in the moment and just enjoy whatever he was, even though he'll never get why. Today was one of those days. It was a Sunday, both of you having the day off to yourselves. And how you two decided to spend it? By doing nothing. Not like it was a bad thing. It was rare for the two of you to have off days, let alone have ones where you both can spend time with one another, just you and him in each other's company. Seated in the living room, upon your couch, him holding you close to his body, your head leaned against his chest, just listening to his steady breathing and heartbeat, and your fingers gently intertwined with his, softly, delicately, never letting go. You wouldn't trade this for the world, and he wouldn't either. Moments like these made Aizawa the most relaxed and the happiest he's ever felt. He'd feel so at peace just being in your presence and holding you tightly to him, and you, on the other hand, were no different than he. He loved it, all of it. The soft buzzing of the television playing softly in the background, the lazy afternoon light pouring into the room, making it warm and welcoming, the small patter of paws of your cat going into the kitchen for a drink of water, and of course, him, your boyfriend himself, Shota Aizawa. He was perfect, the centerpiece to all that was good in your little world, the man who could fill you up with so much happiness and love every time you looked at him, make you feel all those warm, fluttering butterflies, just like when you first laid eyes on him. Him, your perfect little paradise. What are you staring at me for, hun? A gruff voice suddenly spoke, breaking you out of your dazed state. Huh? What, you were staring at him? You blink a couple of times to get yourself out of your cloudy mindset, realizing, in fact, that you were, indeed, staring at him. I was just... You stop, getting trapped in your daze again, looking at him like he was the only thing to look at in this world. You liked him. A lot. You liked just sitting there and admiring him and his features. You thought he was just so attractive, so good-looking and handsome, so pretty, you suddenly blurt out, causing the man in front of you to cock up an eyebrow, confusion settling over his facial features. Pretty? Yeah, you're pretty. What? Pretty what? Aizawa was immediately taken aback by this compliment, his eyes going huge and his jaw becoming slack in a shocked expression. Pretty? You called him pretty? Sure, he knew you thought of him as attractive, handsome even, but pretty? Aizawa has never heard that soft of an expression in his life, let alone dreamed of it. No, that had to be a lie, a joke, something, not for real, right? There was no way in hell that anyone thought of him as something so delicate. Opening and closing his mouth like a fish for a couple of seconds, he finally snaps out of his surprised state, clearing his throat before speaking again. I'm pretty, he sputters out, cursing himself inwardly for acting so starstruck. But he couldn't help it. You called him pretty. Yeah, you're pretty. Very pretty. Very pretty? As if the compliment you just gave him couldn't get any better than it already was. Aizawa was stunned now, at a loss for words. He had no idea how to respond now. No, he couldn't respond. You took notice of this as a smile began to creep its way up onto your face, your eyes lighting up in acknowledgement with what you had done. You made him flustered. How was that possible with the most stoic and callous man in the world? You had no idea, but you had done it anyway. You kept smiling, beaming from ear to ear, as you began to draw invisible lines into his chest, acting nonchalant as you continued with your compliments and sweet words towards him. No, not very pretty. That's too little. The prettiest man in the world, then? You tease, looking back at him to see that his face was now a bright pink. Had you ever seen this man blush? At that point, Aizawa didn't even care if you saw him like that. He was too wrapped up in his own mind, desperately trying to process what had just happened, what you just said. Pretty? Me? Pretty? The word repeated inside his head like a catchy song, or perhaps a broken record. Either way, it was making his face, no, his whole body hot, like it was lit on fire, his heart pounding and his stomach fluttering and flipping. He never felt like this before, and over 2 simple words, no less. Pretty. I'm pretty. The feeling of you staring at him suddenly broke him out of his fuzzy mindset, leaving him looking frazzled. How long was he spaced out for? And how long had you been staring at him? You couldn't help but let out a giggle. What's the matter, babe? Never been called pretty before? That left him stuck again. No, he hasn't. He wouldn't be acting like this if he was used to being called that. Something so pure, something so lovely. Aizawa began to stutter out, feeling like his tongue was tied for a second before letting out a huff of air belligerently. That's it. That's enough. No more being flustered. What was he? Some kind of bashful kitten? No way. He was not gonna let you get to him like that again. Clearing his throat, he calms his expression, looking right at you with a very unamused look. That's very illogical, listener. He burst out laughing, pouting a bit at his dismissal of his emotions. No matter what you did or said, he always tried to act like it was no big deal, like it's just a waste of time to him. But you knew, this time you got him for sure. Sure, whatever you say can't change my mind. You're pretty, whether you like it or not. You say matter-of-factly, as you lean over to give him a small, quick peck on the lips. Aizawa snorts at that, a smile daring to pull up on his lips. Rolling his eyes to mask any more embarrassment, he just sighs and shifts his position on the couch, still holding you close to him. Yeah, okay. I'll let you believe that. He softly speaks, barely above a whisper, as he leans his head down to lay his chin atop your head, letting you know that this conversation was over. You felt a bit disgruntled, knowing if you tried to argue with him, he'd just keep denying it. But that's just how he was, and you were okay with that. As long as he knew how you viewed him, amazing, perfect, pretty, you'd say it to him 10 more times, 100 more times even, just for the satisfaction of making it known how much you cared about him, how much you loved him. But you didn't have to, not to your knowledge. But the first time you said those 2 little words, "We're gonna stick with Aizawa for months to come." Alright, so that's the end of this one. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, whatever, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye!